I need to get this off my chest because it's been eating me alive for years, and I don't have anyone I can really talk to about it without it turning into a family argument. This is gonna be long, so bear with me. I just need to lay it all out, every messy detail, because I'm tired of carrying it alone. I'm not looking for pity or advice, really. Just need to scream into the void, you know? This all started about 4 years ago, when I was 24 and my brother Jake was 27. We grew up in a smallish town in Ohio, the kind where everyone knows your business, and the biggest event of the year is the county fair. Our family was tight-knit, or at least I thought so. My parents are the kind of people who'd give you the shirt off their back. Mom's a nurse, dad's a mechanic. Both worked their asses off to give us a decent life. Jake and I were close as kids, even though he was always the louder, more reckless one. I was the quiet kid who got good grades and stayed out of trouble. Jake, he was the guy who'd sneak out at 16, get caught TPing the neighbor's house, and somehow charm his way out of consequences. Classic golden boy vibes. By the time we hit our 20s, though, things started to shift. I was in community college, working part-time at a hardware store, trying to figure out my life. Jake, on the other hand, was bouncing between jobs, bartender, construction, some sketchy sales gig that I never fully understood. He'd always have these big plans, talking about starting his own business or moving to California, but it was all talk. Mom and Dad were always there to bail him out when he got fired or came up short on rent. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured that's just what parents do, right? Help their kids when they're struggling. Then came the summer of 2021. I remember it was July, hot as hell, and I was crashing at my parents' place for a bit while I saved up for my own apartment. Jake had been living in a rundown duplex about 20 minutes away, and he'd been weirdly distant for a few months. Like, he'd show up for Sunday dinners, but he was twitchy, always checking his phone, making excuses to leave early. Mom kept saying he was stressed about work, but I could tell something was off. His eyes were bloodshot half the time, and he'd lost weight. Not in a healthy way, but in that gaunt, hollow-cheeked way that makes your stomach drop. One night, I get a call from Mom at like 2 a.m. She's sobbing so hard I can barely understand her. "Jake's in jail," she finally chokes out. My heart just stops. I'm thinking, what the hell did he do? Speeding ticket? Bar fight? Mom tells me he got pulled over for a busted taillight and the cops found drugs in his car. Not weed, meth. A lot of it. Like felony level amounts. I'm sitting there on my bed, staring at the wall, trying to process how my brother, the guy who used to build forts with me in the backyard, is now locked up for meth. The next few days were a blur. I drove Mom and Dad to the police station, sat through meetings with a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and listened as they tried to piece together what happened. Turns out, Jake had been hanging with some shady people from his sales job. The cops thought he was dealing, not just using, because of the quantity they found. Jake swore up and down he wasn't selling, that the drugs belonged to someone else, but the evidence wasn't exactly in his favor. His bail was set at $50,000, which meant my parents needed to come up with $5,000 for a bondsman, plus legal fees that were piling up fast. Here's where things get messy. My parents didn't have that kind of money lying around. They'd been saving for years, mostly for retirement, maybe a little for a vacation they'd always talked about but never took. Their savings account had about $40,000, every penny they'd scraped together over decades of overtime and skipped luxuries. Mom didn't even hesitate. She said, "We can't leave him in there. He's our son." Dad just nodded, but I could see the strain in his face, like he was trying to hold it together for her sake. They emptied the account, every cent, paid the bondsman, got Jake a lawyer, and got him out while he awaited trial. I was pissed, but I didn't say anything at first. I mean, I love Jake, but this wasn't a speeding ticket. This was serious, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he'd been lying to us for a long time. When he got out, he was all apologies, promising he'd get clean, go to rehab, turn his life around. Mom and Dad ate it up, but I wasn't so sure. I'd seen him pull the "I'll do better" card before, and it never stuck. Over the next few months, things got worse. Jake's case dragged on, and the lawyer fees kept climbing. My parents were tapped out, so they started dipping into their credit cards. Dad picked up extra shifts at the shop, and Mom started working nights at the hospital. They were exhausted, snapping at each other over stupid stuff like who forgot to buy milk. I tried to help, covered some of their bills, bought groceries when I could, but I was barely making ends meet myself. Meanwhile, Jake was supposed to be going to court-mandated rehab, but I'd catch him sneaking out at weird hours, or he'd show up at family dinners looking like he hadn't slept in days. I wanted to believe he was trying, but deep down, I knew he wasn't. The trial finally happened about a year later. Jake's lawyer managed to get the charges reduced, possession with intent to distribute down to simple possession. He got 18 months in prison, with credit for time served, plus 3 years of probation and mandatory rehab. Mom cried like it was a funeral, but honestly, I was relieved. I thought maybe prison would force him to get his shit together. Plus, I was exhausted from watching my parents destroy themselves to save him. But here's the kicker. While Jake was in prison, my parents' financial situation completely fell apart. They'd burned through their savings, racked up $15,000 in credit card debt, and were barely keeping up with their mortgage. Dad had to get a second job driving for a delivery service, and Mom's health started slipping. She was getting migraines, losing weight, always on edge. I stepped up as much as I could. I moved back home permanently to help with bills, took on a second job at a warehouse, and basically put my own life on hold. I wasn't dating, wasn't saving for my future, wasn't even thinking about myself. It was all about keeping the family afloat. When Jake got out last year, I thought maybe things would turn around. He seemed different at first, quieter, maybe humbled. He got a job at a car wash, started going to NA meetings. Mom and Dad were over the moon, talking about how he'd turned a corner. But I couldn't shake this pit in my stomach. I'd heard it all before, and sure enough, about 6 months ago, I started noticing the signs again. He'd miss dinners, make excuses about work, or show up looking wired. I confronted him one night, and he got defensive, saying I was judging him and didn't understand what he was going through. I lost it. I yelled at him about how Mom and Dad had given up everything for him, how I'd put my life on hold, and he just stormed out. Last month, I got the call I'd been dreading. Jake got arrested again. This time it was for violating probation, failed a drug test. He's back in jail, facing another year, maybe more. Mom's a wreck, Dad's barely speaking, and I'm just numb. They don't have the money to bail him out this time. And honestly, I don't think they would even if they did. But the damage is done. Their savings are gone, their credit's shot, and they're still paying off debts from the first time. I'm 28 now, still living at home, working 2 jobs, and trying to keep my parents from losing their house. I love my brother, but I hate him too. I hate what he's done to us. I hate that I feel guilty for hating him. I keep thinking about what my life could have been if this hadn't happened. I was saving for an apartment, maybe going back to school for a better degree. Now I'm just stuck, and I don't know how to get out. Sometimes I wonder if I'm a bad person for wanting to walk away, to let Jake figure his own shit out. But then I see Mom crying over old photo albums, or Dad staring out the window like he's lost, and I know I can't abandon them. They gave up everything for Jake, and now I'm giving up everything for them. I don't know why I'm posting this. Maybe I just needed to say it out loud. If you've been through something like this, how do you deal with the resentment? How do you keep going when it feels like your family's falling apart and you're the only one holding it together? Thanks for reading, I guess.